Hello guys. Tonight, we're taking a slow step back into one of the most haunting and quietly tragic chapters of human history. I invite you to lie back, let your breath slow, and drift into a different time, far from the comforts of home, far from warm beds and the safety of peacetime. Tonight, you're going to be a soldier in the First World War. Before we begin, I'm always so fascinated by where and when you're listening to these stories. So if you don't mind, tell me, where are you in the world right now, and what time is it as you drift off? Now, wherever you are, I want you to get as cozy as you can. Wrap yourself in a soft blanket, let the light fade around you, let the gentle silence of the night surround you. We're not rushing anything here. Tonight is slow, tonight is quiet, and tonight you're going to walk gently into the grim and muddy world of the trenches. Close your eyes if you haven't already. You're no longer in your room. You're now in northern France. It's the autumn of 1916. The world is at war. The morning is grey, not rainy, not yet, but there's a mist that never seems to lift. It curls along the ground like ghostly fingers, weaving between the broken stumps of once great trees, now shattered by shell fire. The sky above is low, the colour of old pewter, and beneath your boots the earth is soft, heavy with damp. Mud, sticky, sucking mud. Always the mud. You're 23 years old. Or perhaps you're 19. Maybe you're 30. In this story, you're simply you. You've been called up. Or maybe you volunteered. They told you it would be an adventure, that it would be over by Christmas. But Christmas came and went, and another one too. You're still here. The uniform itches against your skin. It's thick wool, not made for comfort, but for durability, and barely that. You can smell the earth soaked into the fabric, a hint of oil, and always the distant metallic tang of blood. Your fingers are raw and cold, even inside your gloves. The air smells of damp rot, wood, sweat, and something else. Something burnt, something chemical. Your breath fogs in front of your face as you crouch behind a sandbag wall. This is the trench. You're home now. It stretches for miles. Not a straight line, but a chaotic zigzag of mud, wood, barbed wire, and filth. To your left and right, other men are hunched in silence. They don't talk much anymore. Words are expensive here. Most of them speak with their eyes, a glance, a nod, the occasional muttered curse. Above you, the war groans and crackles. Every so often, a shell shrieks overhead. A long, lonely wail followed by a thunderous impact somewhere distant or worse, not distant enough. Sometimes they land close, sometimes they don't. You've learned not to flinch, or at least you try. You've been here for 3 weeks, or has it been 3 months? Time in the trenches is not measured in days, but in moments. The whistle of a morning bombardment, the sloshing of boots through flooded dugouts, the buzzing of flies over unburied dead, the scraping coughs of a soldier with gas damage in his lungs, and the soft, almost tender gnawing of rats against your food, or your boots. You reach into your pack and take out a small tin. It's your rations, bully beef, a kind of tinned meat. It's dense and greyish, and it smells faintly of salt and tin. You eat slowly, not because you're savouring it, but because there's nothing else to do. A rat, large as a cat, eyes bright with hunger, scurries past your boot. You don't react. You've stopped reacting to most things. At night they come out in packs. You hear them scratching and chewing through everything. Some soldiers try to shoot them, others name them. They're part of the trench now, like the lice in your seams, the damp that never dries, and the dreams you've stopped having. You weren't always this quiet. Back in training camp you laughed. You had mates. You wrote letters to your family. Maybe you still do. Maybe you don't. Post arrives only sometimes, and it's always late. Many never get to read their last letters. They're found on bodies days later, folded in breast pockets smudged with blood. Today, you have sentry duty. That means standing behind the parapet, just your eyes peering over the edge, watching the no man's land ahead. It's a blasted stretch of land, cratered and barren, torn up by shell fire. Nothing moves out there except the wind. And the crows, black slick-winged crows that circle patiently. They know how to wait. You shift your weight, your boots squelching slightly in the muck beneath. Behind you, somewhere deeper in the trench, a man coughs violently, the kind of cough that speaks of gas, of lungs burned raw, chlorine, phosgene, mustard. They all smell different. You've learned to recognise each by scent alone. The yellow gas is the worst. It clings to your clothes. It blinds. It burns. It leaves you drowning in your own lungs slowly and quietly. There is no glamour here, no glory, just survival. You and the trench, day after day, night after night. You wash with cold water if at all. You sleep with one eye open. You wait. That's what you do mostly. You wait. For the next shelling. For the next order to go over the top. For the next name to be crossed off the roster. You wait for silence. Or for the end. But not now. Not yet. Because tonight, as you lie back in your bed, safe, warm, and whole, you're only dreaming of what it was like. And that is enough. You shift your weight again and feel the dull ache in your lower back, the stiffness in your knees, and the itch at the base of your neck that never seems to go away. It's the lice. You don't remember when you stopped trying to fight them. The powder helps a little, but never enough. You scratch absently, your fingers moving under your collar, and your nails come away with grime. You don't bother wiping them. Everyone here looks like this. Gaunt, dirty, eyes ringed with black. You haven't seen a clean reflection of yourself in weeks, maybe longer. There are no mirrors in the trench, and even if there were, you doubt you'd recognise the face staring back. The sergeant comes down the line. He moves like he's sleepwalking, boots dragging, his greatcoat flapping against his legs. He stops, gives you a look, then grunts. No words, just a small nod. You nod back. That's enough. He moves on. Somewhere a few yards away, someone is softly humming under their breath. The tune is familiar. You think it's a folk song, maybe from Yorkshire or Lancashire. It fades quickly into the wind. The trench itself is a patchwork of desperation. Wooden planks laid down as duckboards to keep feet out of the worst of the mud, though many are cracked or missing. Sandbags, some leaking, others frozen solid, sag against the walls. Water seeps through from below and drips down from above, gathering in icy pools that no one can avoid. There are signs nailed up on bits of board. Keep your head down. No smoking after dark. Gas warning area. They hang crookedly, splattered with muck and soot. You glance up over the rim of the trench, carefully, just enough to see. The no man's land is still there, wide and lifeless. The barbed wire coils glint faintly in the flat grey light. Beyond that, the other side, the enemy trench. You know it's there, though it's barely visible. Sometimes you see movement, helmets, rifles, shadows. But most of the time it's just like your side, waiting, watching. Somewhere a sniper's shot cracks through the air, sudden and sharp. Then nothing. You lower your head, heart beating faster for a few seconds before it settles again. Later there will be a rumble down the line, a whisper passed from man to man. Something's coming. You hear it first as a low drone, distant but unmistakable, artillery, and not yours. The shells begin to fall with mechanical precision. First one, far off, then another, closer, then another. The ground shakes, dust falls from the trench wall, someone curses. The blast winds roll down the dugout like thunder in a tunnel. You duck instinctively as one lands nearby. The concussion hits your chest like a kick, and clods of earth rain down from above. You taste dirt and cordite on your tongue. The world is lightless for a moment, just grey smoke and deafening sound. When it passes, the trench is still intact. Mostly. Someone down the way isn't answering when called. The sergeant doesn't say anything. He just walks down and checks. A few minutes later, he comes back, shaking his head. Another one gone. There's a strange matter-of-factness to it all. No ceremony, just subtraction. You were supposed to rotate out of the front line today, back to the reserve trench, maybe even billets, where there are blankets and hot tea. But now word comes down. The relief unit didn't make it through the shelling. You'll be staying another night, or maybe two. You feel something in your stomach tighten, then let go. You're not surprised. Nothing surprises you anymore. Night falls without warning, as it always does. The sky turns a deep, formless black, and the trench becomes a place of whispers and shapes. You move with care. Every sound carries. You wear your gas mask slung around your neck now, always ready. A soft pop from far off signals a flare. The enemy probing. The sky brightens momentarily in a green-white halo, and every figure freezes like statues until the light dies again. Then, motion resumes. You share a tin of cold beans with the man next to you. He's called Price, or maybe Pratt. You've only known him a few weeks, but it feels longer. He says little, just nods when you offer the food. His fingers shake slightly. You don't ask why. You know why. Everyone here has their own list of memories they carry around, pressed down like stones in their pockets. You've seen too much, heard too much. That sound a man makes when he's been shot through the stomach. The way a body doesn't look human after a direct shell hit. The silence that follows a gas attack when the birds stop singing, if they were ever singing. You try to sleep later, curled into yourself on a ledge dug into the wall, but the cold creeps in like a slow tide. You pull your coat tighter, rest your chin on your chest and listen to the sounds of the night trench. Water dripping, distant shells, quiet sobbing from somewhere down the line. A rat scurries over your foot. You don't even move. Eventually sleep takes you. Not restful sleep, not dreaming sleep, just unconsciousness. Your body shutting down, if only for a short while, to protect itself from the weight of another day. The sergeant says there'll be a patrol tomorrow, before dawn, out into no man's land. You volunteered. You don't remember doing so, but your name is on the list now, and once it's there, it doesn't come off. Tomorrow you go over the top. Morning doesn't come with sunlight, only a pale thinning of the darkness, a reluctant greying at the edges of the sky. The trench wakes slowly, not with the gentle stir of bedsheets, but with the rustle of uniforms, the clink of gear, the quiet groans of joints that haven't rested properly in weeks. You rise with the others, knees stiff, spine crooked from the dugout ledge. The cold has crept into your bones, and you feel it even through the thick wool of your greatcoat. Your breath fogs in front of your face, and you taste the frost in the air, laced with that ever-present stink of decay, rust, and wet dirt. Today is the day. The sergeant passes by again, checking names against a worn, dirty notebook. His thumb leaves a smudge of black where he marks a check beside yours. You feel it more than you hear it. A tightening in the air, a subtle shifting of mood. The men speak even less than usual, a few mumble to themselves. One is bent over in the corner, scribbling a letter by the light of a dim lantern. He signs it quickly, folds it, and tucks it into the breast pocket of his tunic. He doesn't cry, but you can see the effort it takes not to. You follow orders, quietly, automatically. They hand you wire cutters, they check your rifle, they remind you of the signals. 1 long whistle to go, 2 to retreat. If you hear 3, it means everything's gone to hell. You're meant to bring something back from the patrol. Information, a prisoner, a sense of where the German machine guns are. But everyone knows the truth. You'll be lucky to come back at all. The fire step is slick with frost. Your boots slip slightly as you climb up. You crouch low, pressed against the trench wall. The sandbags here are newer, packed tightly. There's a faint scorch on the edge of one where a flare landed last week. You keep your head down. You don't dare look up. Not yet. The others are lined up beside you. Price is there. Or is it Pratt? He looks at you, eyes hollow, mouth set in a line. You nod once. He doesn't nod back. There's a moment, just before the whistle, when the world feels unnaturally still. You feel your heartbeat, not in your chest, but in your ears. Your hands tremble slightly on your rifle. You hope no one sees. Then the whistle. It tears through the morning like a scream, high and long and sharp, and suddenly your legs are moving, scrambling over the top, up the trench wall, out into the open. No man's land is a nightmare made real. The ground is torn into jagged craters, frozen mud slick underfoot, shattered tree trunks jutting like broken teeth. Barbed wire snakes in all directions, tangled and rusted, sometimes buried under snow, sometimes glinting in the rising light. The air is raw. You feel it whip across your cheeks as you run, crouched low, the weight of your rifle dragging at your arms. You don't look up. You don't need to. The crack of gunfire begins almost immediately. Short bursts from somewhere ahead. The angry rattle of a German MG-08. The bullets stitch the air around you, whipping through it like invisible lashes. You drop to the ground, hard, into a crater slick with half-frozen water. It soaks through your trousers instantly, but you're alive. You press your body flat against the earth. It's the only thing that feels solid. To your right, someone's shouting. Not at you, just out loud, raw and panicked. Then he stops shouting. You don't look to see why. You wait, counting seconds without knowing what number you're counting to. Eventually you raise your head an inch. The gunfire has slackened. You crawl forward, every inch a prayer, mud in your hands, face close to the ground. You reach another dip, and someone else is already there. A corporal you've seen once or twice. He gestures silently, pointing to a section of wire a few meters ahead. You nod. You move again. The wire cutters are cold in your grip, the handles slippery. You reach the wire, keep low, work quickly. Each snip sounds deafening. You half expect a flare to go up. None does. You finish the hole and motion back. The corporal signals the others, just 3 of them now. You don't know where the rest are. Together you creep forward, inch by inch. Ahead, the enemy trench looms closer. Not much more than a black line in the earth, broken by sandbags and steel plates. You're close enough now to hear voices, muffled but unmistakably German. They don't know you're here yet. You feel the tension rise in your throat. The corporal gives the signal, hold, watch. You lie still in the mud. Minutes pass. The voices drift away. A light flares behind the enemy line, but it's a lamp, not a flare. You can see the shadows of men moving. It's not a strong position. Maybe newly built. Maybe a listening post. Then someone behind you makes a sound. A cough. Loud. Sudden. Stupid. The German trench explodes into noise. A flare shoots up. White light floods no man's land. You freeze as the world is illuminated in ghastly detail. Broken bodies, twisted wire, the grotesque silhouettes of the dead frozen in place. Gunfire erupts. You hear bullets hit the ground around you, snapping through the air. Someone screams. Someone falls. You roll, then crawl, then run. The others scatter. No more signals, no more plans. It's survival now. You throw yourself into a crater, heart racing. Your breath comes in sharp gasps. There's no time to think. Just wait. The flare dies. Darkness returns. You wait longer. Minutes, maybe more. Eventually you move. You're alone now. You double back, crawling in zigzags. Every movement feels exposed, but no bullets come. The enemy has stopped firing. Maybe they think you're all gone. Maybe they're right. The trench appears like salvation in the dark. You slip over the parapet and fall in. The others are there. A few of them. Not all. The corporal is not. The sergeant asks nothing. Just counts heads. Then he says one word. Inside. You sit in silence for a long time. No one speaks. The smell of gunpowder still clings to your skin. You're soaking wet, trembling with cold and fatigue. You don't know how long you've been gone. You feel older, heavier. Not because of your body, but because something inside you has changed. Later you lie on the duckboards and close your eyes. You don't sleep. Not really. But you don't move either. You went over the top. You came back. But it cost something. You're not sure what yet, but you feel it missing. The days blur. There are no real beginnings here. No dawns. No meaningful suns to rise over the wire. Just one long smear of grey light that fades into another night, and then another. You eat when they bring the food, if they bring it. You sleep when the world allows it. Never fully, never long. It's hard to tell how many days have passed since the patrol. Could be 2, could be 6. The trench doesn't care. The war doesn't keep count the way you used to. Everything smells of wet wool, mould, and the sick sweet rot of something unseen. Maybe it's the rats. Maybe it's the bodies under the duckboards. You heard once, back in training, that in the worst of it, they just built over the dead, laid boards across them and kept moving. You didn't believe it then. Now you know better. The rain has returned, heavier this time, relentless. You sit on an overturned ammunition crate, your knees pulled close to your chest, watching the water gather again at your boots. It seeps up from below, through the floorboards, through your socks, through the soles of your boots that are splitting along the seams. Your toes feel like separate people now, numb and foreign. Trench foot is always mentioned, but always too late. Once the rot sets in, they just slice it off. Or cut the foot off entirely. You've seen the aftermath. Men on stretchers, crying not because of the pain, but because it means they're going home, and they'll never walk right again. There are a few spare pairs of socks in your pack, wrapped in waxed paper like relics. You rotate them carefully when you can, drying one pair under your armpits while the others go on wet or not. That's how it's done here. You do what you can. You try not to think about your feet when they stop hurting. Pain means nerves. No pain means worse. The dugout is worse than the trench in some ways. It's darker, deeper, closer. The air is stale, almost wet in your throat. The candlelight barely touches the corners, and there are shapes in the dark. Not men, just uniforms hanging on nails, but your eyes play tricks. Someone hums again, just softly, the same melody as before. You never learn who it is. No one ever admits to it. But it's there. A thread of humanity weak and fraying. You write a letter, but you don't send it. There's nothing left to say. Nothing anyone back home would understand. How do you describe the feeling of sitting for 3 hours beside the corpse of a man you knew, unable to move him, unable to speak? How do you explain the moment when the rat ran across his chest and you didn't even flinch? How do you describe the way death smells? Not like a sudden thing, but a lingering presence, like mildew, like copper, like old meat left in the sun. The officers try to keep morale. They say things in the mess about rotation, about leave, about the war ending soon. They don't believe it either. The men look away when the lieutenant speaks. He's young, too clean. He still writes his mother on proper paper, folded with pressed corners. He still combs his hair before going above ground. He hasn't learned yet that neatness is a kind of madness here. Then comes the gas. There's no warning this time, not really. No planes overhead, no distant boom of shells filled with it. Just the sudden change in the air, the quiet shout that runs like a shiver down the trench. Gas! Gas! You fumble for your mask, heart pounding, hands clumsy with cold. The strap catches on your helmet. Your fingers find the edge, tug it down. The mask seals against your face, breath loud and rasping inside. You hear the others doing the same, a chorus of rubber and panic. Someone's coughing already, too slow, too late. He stumbles past, eyes wide behind the glass of his mask, clutching his throat. You turn away. You've learned not to watch. The gas doesn't always kill. Sometimes it just burns. Eyes, lungs, skin. Sometimes it leaves a man blind. Sometimes it leaves him coughing up pieces of himself for days. They say the worst is mustard gas. It clings to the mud, stays low to the ground, seeps into clothing. Even after the mask goes on, it finds ways in. You crouch low, breathing through the filter, waiting. The gas moves like fog, silent and heavy. You don't know how long you stay like that. Minutes, hours. Time bends again. You think of home, not as a real place, but as something that once existed. A kitchen, a smell of bread, a fireplace. You wonder if it's still there, if anyone's still waiting. The all clear comes eventually. A bell, rung from somewhere up the line. You peel the mask off cautiously. The air tastes wrong, bitter. Your throat feels raw, but you're still breathing. Around you, the others are doing the same. A few men are lying down, unmoving. One is being dragged by his arms. He's alive, but his chest heaves like he's drowning. You try not to watch. Later you sit with a cup of something hot. Tea, probably. It's barely warm and it tastes of metal, but you drink it anyway, holding the tin close to your chest. You're exhausted, but you won't sleep tonight. Not after the gas. No one does. Instead, you clean your rifle again. Not because it needs it, but because the act is calming. Something mechanical. Something that has rules. Oil the bolt, wipe the barrel, check the sight. You do it slowly, carefully, like a ritual. Outside, the rain has stopped, but the trench is still flooding. The boards float in places. Somewhere, someone is laughing, quietly. You don't know why. It's not joy, just madness, dressed in the clothes of a man. You lie down later, boots still on, back against the wall. You stare at the ceiling, at the dark wood beams wet with age and smoke. You wait. For sleep. For the whistle. For whatever comes next. You wake before you're conscious of it. Your body moves first, shifting beneath the sodden weight of your coat, your eyes opening reluctantly into the familiar gloom. The dugout is a dim pocket of stale air and sweat-damp canvas, lit by a stub of candle burning low in a rusted tin. The walls sweat with moisture, and someone is snoring faintly nearby, the sound echoing off the timber like distant shellfire muffled by years. You don't speak. No one does when they rise. You simply pull your legs in, brace your palms against the slippery floorboards, and push yourself up into the same stooped posture you've kept since arriving at the front. The ceiling is too low to stand straight. Your spine has learned to adapt. Every muscle aches with the soft groan of a life lived in tension. The routine begins. You step out into the trench line, greeted not by morning, but by an eternal middle of something. A day that feels like it's been going on for years. The sky's a sheet of bruised grey. Above it, the distant thump of artillery echoes like footsteps from a god that no longer pays attention. You're used to the sound. You listen for the absences now. The unnatural silences between barrages, the brief pockets of stillness that mean more than the violence ever did. The latrine is a wooden box with no door. You pass it without stopping. No point, not now. Dysentery has a grip on half the men. You've learned to time your meals accordingly if the food comes at all. Today it hasn't. A few hard biscuits from a tin, cold and bitter with the taste of old fat. You chew slowly, not because you enjoy it, but because it passes time. That's all this place is. An endless negotiation with time. Time awake, time asleep, time between shells, time before the next order. Your rifle is already clean. You cleaned it last night, then again this morning, just to be sure. The routine helps. It gives shape to the shapelessness of days that don't change. It's one of the few things that still responds to your hands the way you expect it to. You stand sentry for an hour, 2, maybe more. You lose track. You peer through a periscope to avoid a sniper's bullet. The lens is fogged slightly, but you can still make out the shattered land beyond the parapet. Barbed wire twists across the horizon like veins. Craters filled with black water lie still under the dull light. In the distance, the German lines are just faint shapes in the earth, low and angular and unmoving. You know they're watching too. You wonder if one of them is looking back at you now through his own fogged lens, rifle ready, heart slow and patient. No shots today. That's something. A letter arrives, miraculously. A dull, folded envelope tucked into the hand of a corporal as he passes through on his way up the line. It's addressed to someone named Weller. You hand it off. He takes it without a word, tucks it into his coat. Doesn't open it. You don't ask why. Mail is rare. Censorship is common. Everything is read before it reaches you. Both ways. Whole sentences are blotted out by blue pencil lines, sometimes entire pages. A man once got a letter from his wife that was just a blank sheet with the salutation and her name. He carried it for weeks anyway. The rest of the day is spent waiting, that's the hardest part. Not the fighting, not the fear, the waiting. The knowledge that it could come at any moment. A shell, a flare, a whistle. You sit with your back against the wall of the trench, boots in the water, rifle across your lap. You hum, maybe, a song you can't remember learning. One your mother sang, maybe. Or was it your sister? Your hands have changed. The skin is pale, raw, hardened where the rifle grip has pressed for months. Your fingernails are stained dark. Cuts don't bleed the same way anymore. They just stay red and irritated. The medics have stopped asking questions. They hand out iodine and chalky tablets and move on. A rat scurries past. It's fat, bold, unafraid of you. You watch it crawl into a crack in the wall. They've eaten worse things here. No one talks about that, but you've heard stories. When the rations didn't come for a week last winter, when the men started trapping the rats with bayonets and fire, skinning them over trench stoves, pretending it was rabbit. Your trench section is quiet today. No shells, no orders. That's not peace. It's the edge of something. Everyone feels it. Even the birds are gone. You fill sandbags. You reinforce the parapet. You scoop mud from the fire step into buckets and toss it over the side. A futile effort. The trench will flood again tomorrow. Still, the work matters. It keeps your hands busy, your thoughts distant. The worst thing here is idle time. That's when the mind wanders. To what you've seen, what you've done, who you were before all this. That evening there's a rumble overhead. A plane, far away. You glance up and catch a glimpse of its shape through the cloud cover, a biplane, maybe a scout. Someone nearby swears softly. You all look down again. Eyes to the boards, heads low. Planes mean photographs, bombs, observers calling in artillery strikes, but nothing comes. Night again. There's no dinner, only cold tea and a lump of beef from a tin labelled product of Canada. You eat in silence, crouched beneath a flap of torn canvas, your tin plate resting on your knees. Someone makes a joke. Not a funny one, but people chuckle, because what else is there? A flare goes up around midnight. Pale green, arcing high above the lines, turning every shadow into sharp lines, and every movement into a target. You freeze beneath your blanket. The light dies. Silence returns. You hear a shot in the distance, but it's not aimed at you. You try to sleep, but your legs twitch. Your thoughts keep replaying. The patrol, the gas, the sound the corporal made when he fell. You try to think of your father's voice instead. or your dog's name, or the way the trees looked in summer. But the mud is there too. The cold. The weight of your gear pressing into your chest. You shift on the wooden ledge and pull your coat tighter. You're tired in ways that no sleep will ever fix. And somewhere behind you, someone begins to hum again. The morning arrives without light, as it always does here. Not an awakening, but a dim transition from one shade of grey to another. The trench is no drier than the night before, though the water has shifted, pooling differently between the boards as if it too is restless. You move without thinking now. Boots on, pack adjusted, rifle checked. Every action is done not with urgency, but with an unshakable sense of obligation. The war doesn't ask you to care, only to function. A corporal appears near the dugout, scribbled message in hand, eyes hollow from lack of sleep. His uniform is stained with clay and soot, indistinguishable from yours. He doesn't call out, just raises his chin, indicating the fire step. You move toward him, because that's what you do when someone gestures. Orders follow no ceremony here. Word from HQ, push expected tomorrow. Be ready. He says it flat, like someone commenting on the weather. Then he's gone, boots squelching through the muck toward another stretch of line. No one asks questions anymore. No one wonders who writes these orders, where they come from, or if they're written by men who've ever set foot in a trench. The chain of command has become abstract, something you believe in only because you must, like the idea of sleep or warmth, or the possibility of leaving this place whole. You tell the others. The murmurs ripple down the trench like a quiet wind brushing through tall grass. A few nod. One curses softly. Most simply adjust their packs or glance at the sky, as if the clouds might open and offer some confirmation. A push means one thing, going over the top, across no man's land, toward the wire and the guns and the waiting. There's a dry taste in your mouth now. Anticipation. Not fear exactly. You passed fear long ago. It's something duller, aware, weighted. You feel it in the pit of your stomach and behind your eyes, in the slight tremor of your fingers as you light a cigarette with a match that barely stays lit in the damp air. You spend the day preparing, not dramatically, not like in the books. There are no speeches, no last suppers, just quiet men checking their kit, rewrapping their feet, tying spare socks to their belts, loading clips with methodical precision. A few write letters, carefully folding the pages and addressing them with pencils worn down to nubs. They leave the letters tucked under stones or in their greatcoats, knowing most will never be sent, knowing that someone might find them anyway, and that's enough. You clean your bayonet. The blade is dull, pitted from mud and moisture. You don't want to think about using it. No one does. The rifle is a tool, a shield, a companion. The bayonet is a promise, and not a kind one. You try not to picture what it's like to push it into someone, to feel the resistance of a body not made for this. But your mind strays. It always does, in these hours before. A chaplain appears briefly, offering a prayer to the few men who listen. His collar is stained. He carries a small book with cracked leather binding. You catch only fragments of what he says, something about courage, duty, honour. The words float like dust motes and settle nowhere. No one looks at him when he leaves. By afternoon, supplies arrive. Bullets, bandages, rum. The rum is rationed in little tins doled out with the care of gold. It burns down your throat like fire, warming nothing, but anchoring something deep inside. A memory, maybe, of a time before this. You're not sure anymore. The sky darkens again, though it never really cleared. The air is thick, heavy with the scent of oil, wet canvas, and earth long disturbed. You spend the evening reinforcing the trench, stacking sandbags, checking the duckboards, smoothing the steps that lead up and out. Each movement has a weight to it now. This trench, once a prison, suddenly feels like shelter. The idea of leaving it, even to gain ground, seems foreign, foolish. No one talks about the men who went over last week. The crater where they fell is still visible from the periscope. Their shapes were never recovered, not whole. Sometimes, when the wind is just right, you think you can smell them. Night falls, but no one sleeps. The world is too alert, too charged. You sit with your back to the wall, gear beside you, rifle resting across your lap. The hours stretch. Someone tries to sing quietly, but the sound falters after a few lines. Someone else mutters a joke about Paris, about wine, about a girl who probably never existed. You laugh anyway. not because it's funny, but because it's all you have. A runner passes through around midnight, soaked to the skin. He whispers confirmation. The push is at dawn. No more waiting, no more doubt. The order has come. Fix bayonets, prepare ladders, zero your sights, check your tags, dog tags. You run your fingers over yours, a small disc of metal hanging beneath your collarbone. Name, number, unit, blood type. They say if you're found, this is how they'll know who you were. If you're not found, it won't matter. You close your eyes, but you don't sleep. You picture the wire, the mud, the sound of the whistle. You picture the shape of no man's land in your dreams now, not as a place, but as an ending. No one speaks as the candles go out. You breathe slow, deliberate, and wait for the morning. The whistle doesn't sound like you expect. It's not sharp or heroic, not the bright clarion of the charge from a storybook. It's thin, almost weary. A sound stretched too long over too many mornings. It cuts through the fog like a knife through cloth, and your body responds before your thoughts do. You're up, standing. One foot on the fire step, the other still in the trench, weight shifting forward into that first irreversible movement. The ladders are already set against the trench wall. They're crude. Wooden slats, some nailed unevenly, others reinforced with wire. Men move toward them in silence. No shouting, no war cries. No one's pretending anymore. This isn't glory, this isn't revenge. It's just what comes next. What has to be done. You're part of it now. Part of the machine. Your rifle is in your hands, bayonet fixed. The blade catches what little light there is. Dull steel against dull sky. You climb. One rung, then another. Your legs trembling slightly, not from fear, but from the strain of gear, cold, and the weight of knowing. Then you're out. You step onto the lip of the trench, boots sinking slightly into the churned mud of the parapet. Ahead lies the expanse of no man's land. Wide, pitted, broken. Earth that has forgotten how to grow. No grass, no trees, just mud, craters, rusted wire, and the skeletal remains of once living things. The mist clings to everything, ghostly and thick, but the enemy lines are still visible beyond it, a faint dark smear low on the horizon, where their trenches run parallel to yours watching. You begin to walk, not run. There's no sprinting here. The mud won't allow it. Each step is a heave, a drag, boots sucking against the muck like hands trying to pull you back down. Your breath comes hard in your throat, shallow against the cold. Around you, the others move in formation. A slow, trudging line of shadows hunched under packs, rifles clutched in pale fists. You don't speak. No one does. The only sounds are the creak of gear, the wet slap of boots in mud, and the low whisper of wind. You think for a moment the shelling might not come this time, that maybe the line has moved, that maybe the enemy has retreated. Then the guns open up. It starts with a shriek, the scream of an artillery shell tearing the sky. It lands ahead of you, geysering earth into the air, black soil and fire and metal flying in all directions. Then more come, dozens, hundreds. The barrage isn't random, it's mapped, calculated. They know where you are. They've been watching. Men drop around you. Some fall forward and do not move. Others scream, not words, just sound. Someone stumbles into a crater, vanishing. Another is lifted into the air by a shell burst and comes down wrong, folded in on himself, motionless. Still, you walk. You fire your rifle without aiming. There's nothing to aim at. The enemy's still hidden, still dug in. You see the wire now, coils of it strung across the field, torn and rusted, snagged with old fabric, old bones. It's taller than it looked in the periscope, impenetrable. The men ahead of you pull out wire cutters. They kneel, trying to find openings. One doesn't make it. A bullet snaps him sideways before he touches the wire. You crouch beside a stump that used to be a tree. You reload. Your hands are shaking and you fumble the bolt. Mud clogs the chamber. You wipe it, cursing under your breath, though you know no one can hear you. A bullet passes close, too close. You feel it rather than hear it. A flick of pressure near your shoulder, then nothing. You crawl now, low, elbows in the mud, knees dragging. The ground cuts you, pulls at your coat, your boots. Barbed wire shreds your sleeve. You don't feel the pain, not yet, just the heat. Your blood is awake, loud in your ears. A flare goes up, white light. Everything freezes in the sudden glow. The cratered field, the broken bodies. The men bent double behind chunks of masonry. You hold still, breath caught. When the light fades, the machine guns start. They're worse than the shells. Rhythmic, mechanical, like sewing machines stitching death across the field. You hear the rounds snapping past, cutting down men you'd spoken to just that morning. The sound is relentless. You press your body flat against the ground, cheek in the muck, praying the bullets find someone else. You see the officer wave his arms, screaming something you can't hear. A signal to move, to press forward. You rise halfway, only to drop again as more shells fall. One lands close. The world turns upside down. Your ears ring. You taste dirt, copper. You blink. Everything is sideways. Your hand is empty. Your rifle is gone. You find it, eventually. You crawl forward, dragging it with you. A man next to you is alive, but not moving. His eyes are open, staring upward. You don't ask if he's all right. You know better. You move on. Somehow you reach the second line of wire. It's thinner, cut in places. You slip through a gap and find a dip in the ground, a shell crater filled with oily water. You crouch there, heart pounding, chest burning. You fire again, though you still don't know where the enemy is, just shapes in the mist, muzzle flashes, shadows. Eventually the order to retreat comes, not as a command, but as a wave. Men begin falling back, slowly at first, then faster, stumbling, running, dragging the wounded. Some don't make it, others don't try. You follow, legs numb, lungs aching, stumbling over the dead and the broken. You drop back into the trench like falling into a dream. Someone grabs your arm. You can't tell if they're pulling you to safety or if they just don't want to be alone. Your hands are trembling. Your coat is shredded. Blood, yours or someone else's, spatters your face. You sit back against the wall, chest heaving. The trench feels smaller than it did this morning. Claustrophobic. Too close. But you're alive. For now. You listen to the silence after. It's worse than the barrage. It presses against your ears, reminding you of who isn't speaking anymore, of what didn't return, and somewhere behind you, a kettle whistles. Tea. Because that's what happens next. After the attack, no one speaks for hours. There's no need. Silence becomes the language now, broken only by the shuffle of boots, the distant cough of guns on another sector, and the occasional rattle of a tin mug against the duckboards. You sit slumped against the sandbag wall, breath shallow, arms resting on your knees. Your uniform is soaked through. Water, sweat, blood. It all blends now. The cold creeps through every layer, but you barely register it. Your body feels heavy, not from fatigue alone, but from memory. It lingers in your limbs like the residue of smoke after a fire. Eventually the NCOs pass along the line. They don't offer comfort. They never do. A quiet nod, a pat on the shoulder, a mumbled order to get some rest or clean your kit. That's all. Even that feels oddly human in this place. You see men stare straight ahead for hours, motionless. Others weep without shame, tears cutting clean trails through the grime on their faces. No one looks away anymore. No one judges. That part of the war ended months ago. A few hours later, the routine resumes. Mechanical, exacting. Trench life doesn't stop because of the dead. It only slows long enough to make room for them. The wounded are carried away, some to the dressing station, others farther down the line where ambulances rumble slowly through shell-pocked roads. You wonder, as always, how many will be back tomorrow? How many will never be seen again? How many will wake without a leg, or an arm, or their minds intact? You're given a small loaf of bread and a tin of bully beef. It's impossible to tell how old it is. The meat tastes like grease and iron, and the bread crumbles into your lap with the consistency of wet chalk. Still, you eat. Always eat. It doesn't matter how it tastes. Hunger's voice is louder than revulsion now. The rats are worse today. Drawn by the blood, the spilled rations, the scent of decay that always intensifies after an assault. They move boldly now, fat and quick, running over boots and between legs without hesitation. One scuttles across your foot. You don't flinch. You're long past flinching. You've watched men shoot at them just for the sport of it, or to break the silence, or simply to remind themselves they're still capable of reacting to something. Later, you're told to begin maintenance on the trench. Your section is assigned to reinforce the fire step. The irony doesn't escape you, rebuilding the very place you just left to die for a few meters of churned up wasteland. You haul sandbags, stack duckboards, dig out collapsed corners. The mud is relentless. Every movement demands more than it should. Your fingers, even in gloves, are raw and red, the skin cracking from the cold and constant wet. You see a boot sticking out of the side of the trench wall, not from someone alive. The earth gives up bodies like bad secrets here. Sometimes from weeks ago, sometimes from yesterday. You look away. Someone marks it with a bayonet in the ground so the next team knows where not to dig. The gas warning comes just before dusk. A single shout down the line. Gas! Followed by the high-pitched ringing of a handbell rusted from weather and use. You fumble for your mask, every motion practiced, automatic. Pull the satchel, unbuckle, fit over your face. The world goes green through the clouded lenses, your breath fogging the view. You taste rubber, sweat, and the faint chemical scent of canvas soaked in anti-gas solution. But it's a false alarm, or a change in wind direction. After 10 minutes of waiting, crouched and tense, the order comes to remove masks. You unstrap it carefully, wiping your face with a filthy sleeve. Everyone does it slowly, nervously, knowing that the next time might not be so harmless. You've seen what real gas attacks do. Men coughing up pink foam, blind, writhing in the mud like dying fish. The mask is a comfort and a prison. It protects you, but only just. When darkness settles in, you take your turn at sentry duty. 2 hours on, 4 off. You climb up to the fire step and peer over the parapet, eyes scanning no man's land. It's quiet now, eerily so. The ground out there glows faintly under the moonlight. Silver mud, twisted wire, and the barely visible contours of shell craters. A body lies sprawled not far from the wire. One of yours, left behind in the retreat. The back of your throat tightens. You try not to recognize him. You listen. That's your job now. To listen. For movement, for sounds, for signs of enemy patrols. But all you hear is the wind, the creak of wood shifting under weight, the soft drip of water from the lip of the trench. Occasionally a flare from the German side lights the field. You freeze each time, breath held. The light is cold and surgical, exposing everything for a few seconds before darkness swallows it again. When your shift ends, you slide down and find your dugout. A narrow timbered hole in the wall, just big enough to crawl into. The floor is damp, the ceiling low. You share it with 3 others. You lie down without removing your boots. No one removes their boots. The lice are bad enough without bare skin exposed. You scratch absently at your side, the itching a dull companion now. Sleep comes slowly. It always does. You stare at the rough beams above, at the flickering shadows cast by a guttering candle. You hear someone murmur a prayer. Another man shifts in his sleep, moaning softly. You close your eyes and try to drift, but the images rise unbidden. The mud, the wire, the wide white eyes of the man who didn't move. You shift onto your side and pull your coat tighter around you. A rat scrambles near your head. You don't move. Tomorrow will be the same. That's what war is now. Not just death. Repetition. Time loses its shape in the trenches. There are no clocks, no schedules you can count on. Only the rhythm of duty and the weather. The calendar might say Wednesday. But here, it's only another grey slice of unchanging misery. You wake not from rest, but from exhaustion, easing just enough to bring you back into the cold. The walls of the dugout sweat moisture and fat droplets. Your breath clouds before your face, and your limbs are stiff, as if the mud has crept inside you. Morning is declared not by the sun, which never truly breaks through, but by the arrival of a ration party trudging down the communication trench. They come like ghosts, coated in mud and silence, bearing crates of food, parcels of mail, sometimes new boots or coils of barbed wire. You and a few others go to unload the supplies, boots sloshing through the deep muck that no longer even attempts to be water. You feel it suck at your ankles like something alive. Breakfast is predictable. Tea, so strong it might peel paint from the dugout walls, served in dented tin mugs, and a biscuit hard enough to break teeth if not soaked. Sometimes a slice of bacon appears, greasy and grey, curled like an old leaf. It's a rare luxury. You chew slowly, forcing it down while your stomach turns, knowing it will be hours before the next meal and that hunger is better than sickness. The work begins again. Sandbags to be filled and stacked, dugouts to be shored up, latrines dug, walls patched, parapets reinforced. The front line is always eroding, collapsing, sinking, reshaping itself under the weight of water, shells and time. The labour is endless and thankless. but necessary. If you don't do it, the trench might not be here tomorrow, and with it, neither will you. Somewhere down the line, a shell falls, the ground shakes, you don't flinch. No one does anymore unless it's close enough to lift mud into your lap. The artillery comes randomly, sometimes in short bursts, sometimes in long rolling barrages that can last hours. But most of the time it's just single shells, a reminder that someone out there is still watching, still waiting for a moment of carelessness. Later, you're assigned a patrol, a short one, just to check the wire and look for signs of enemy movement. You hate patrols. Everyone does. The wire is the border between what feels like existence and what feels like death. Crossing it means entering that strange empty country of no man's land, where the ground swallows men and sound seems to vanish into the mist. You go in a group of 3, crouched low, moving slowly. You carry wire cutters, not for sabotage today, but just in case you have to move fast. Every sound is amplified. The rustle of fabric, the squelch of mud, the quiet gasp of breath. You reach the outer edge of your wire and stop. One man produces a mirror on a stick, raising it slowly above the earth's edge. Nothing. Just more fog, more broken ground. You mark the position, make note of a new crater, then crawl back the way you came. It's only an hour, but it feels like days. When you return, someone's left hot tea near the brazier. It's lukewarm now, but you drink it like it's the finest thing you've ever tasted. The others are quiet. You exchange glances, not words. You're all alive, and for now, that's enough. The evening routine begins again. Cleaning weapons, boiling socks, checking feet for trench rot. You remove your boots with care, peeling back the soaked wool from flesh that's begun to soften and whiten like old paper. You dry them as best you can, but the trench is never dry. Nothing ever truly dries here. Even fire feels damp. Letters arrive. One is for you. You read it slowly, squinting at the smudged pencil marks. It's from home. Your sister, maybe. She talks about rationing, about a neighbour who joined up, about the weather. She says she hopes you're well, that you're safe. You smile without meaning to. Not because of the words, but because they came. A bridge between two worlds. You fold the letter and tuck it into the breast pocket of your tunic over your heart. Night again. Sentry duty, then sleep. You hear rumours whispered through the line, about new orders, about possible rotation out. Relief. It's a word that doesn't mean what it used to. It's not freedom, just a different trench, a slightly quieter sector, perhaps a chance to lie down without fear of a shell dropping into your chest. But no one believes it yet. You've heard it too many times. The men sleep in shifts. You wrap yourself in your greatcoat and sit with your back to the trench wall, staring up at the strip of sky. Stars flicker faintly through the mist. You wonder if they're looking up at the same stars back home, if they can even imagine what it's like here. You barely can. A voice calls from down the line, quiet, urgent. Another sentry heard movement near the wire. You're up again, rifle ready, peering into the dark. You don't see anything. You don't need to. The waiting is the same. Whether someone comes or not, the fear settles in the chest and never quite goes away. You stand there for an hour, maybe more. The cold works its way into your boots, your spine, your teeth. You shift your weight from one foot to the other. You feel the seconds crawl past, each one longer than the last. Then the shift ends. You nod to the next man. He doesn't speak, just takes your place. You climb down, back into the dugout. You curl up on your side, pulling the damp blanket around your shoulders. The sound of someone snoring softly fills the space. Another rat scratches along the timber above your head. You close your eyes. The trench breathes around you. The mud isn't just ground. It's a living, breathing enemy, slow and unyielding. It creeps everywhere, seeping into your boots, your clothes, your very skin, as if it wants to claim you. This morning, you awake with the cold still deep in your bones. Your body aches from hours spent pressed against the cold, wet earth, and every movement is a reminder that the trench is a trap of sticky clay and water. You rise reluctantly, feet sliding on the slick duck boards that line the trench floor. The boards groan underfoot, their wood softened by constant dampness and heavy boots. The walls seem to close in, soaked and sagging where sandbags have begun to rot, mud bulging through the seams like the trench itself is struggling to hold its shape. Outside, a thin drizzle has begun, turning the mud to an almost liquid soup. The skies are uniform grey, heavy with the promise of more rain. You pull your greatcoat tighter, collar upturned against the biting wind. The air smells of wet earth, cold metal, and something fouler, decay. You make your way along the trench, water sloshing at your ankles. A rat darts past, its beady eyes gleaming in the dim light. It's larger than you remember, swollen with scavenged scraps and disease. You think briefly of the stories you've heard, about rats gnawing on the dead, even the living, and about the terrible illnesses that follow them. But such thoughts barely register anymore. They're just part of this new reality. At the latrine, the smell is unbearable. A pit dug deep into the earth, it's more than just waste. It's a cesspool of sickness and despair. The sides are slick with mud and waste, the wood steps broken and slippery. You step carefully, knowing many have slipped and fallen in, some never to come out again. The work begins early. Orders to improve drainage are given, but the men know it's futile. No matter how many trenches are dug or sandbags stacked, the water always wins. You spend the morning shoveling mud, trying to keep the trench passable. Every scoop feels heavier than the last, and the water seems endless. Your hands are numb and cracked, the skin peeling where cold and wet have worn it raw. You glance down and notice your boots, caked in mud, leaking water from a new tear in the sole. You'll have to patch them soon, but you're already out of materials. The constant dampness seeps into your bones. Your feet are wet hours after you remove your boots. The smell of rot creeps in with it, and you can't tell if it's coming from your body or the trench itself. Later, you're ordered to carry supplies up the communication trench. The narrow passage is a muddy tunnel, cramped and dark. The walls press in, dripping water and debris. You're careful where you step. One false move could mean falling into a shell hole or breaking your ankle on a buried piece of metal. As you move, you notice a new body lying partially buried in mud beside the trench wall. The face is swollen beyond recognition, eyes closed forever. You look away quickly, stomach turning. There's no room for mourning here. The dead become part of the landscape, anonymous and forgotten. Back in the dugout, you try to dry your boots near the brazier, but the heat only makes the dampness more suffocating, a heavy steam rising from the leather. The scent mixes with that of unwashed men, stale tobacco, and the faint tang of gun oil. The mud is everywhere, in the trenches, in the men, in the very air you breathe. It clings to you like a second skin, a constant reminder that here, nature itself has joined the war against you. As night falls, the rain intensifies, drumming on the earth and wooden supports. Water seeps through the walls, pooling in low spots, and the trench becomes a river. You lie down on your cot, the soaked blankets heavy and cold against your skin. Your body aches, muscles stiff, heart heavy. Outside, somewhere in the distance, a shell explodes, its sharp crack swallowed almost immediately by the rain. The war continues, unrelenting. You close your eyes, swallowed by the endless mud and cold. You've come to realise that the trenches belong not only to the men, but also to another, more elusive occupant, the rats. They rule this world beneath the broken skies, their territory sprawling through the tunnels and dugouts like a shadow kingdom. You watch them from the corner of your eye, those quick whiskered shapes darting along the wooden beams and through the crevices between sandbags, their glowing eyes reflecting the dim candlelight. They're bigger than any rats you knew back home, some nearly the size of a cat swollen with the spoils of war and neglect. It's whispered among the men that some of these beasts have grown so bold they will gnaw at the dead or even the sleeping soldiers, if hunger drives them. You've felt their tiny claws on your skin at night, the unmistakable tickle of something crawling just beyond sight. You try not to think about it. To survive here, you have to. The rats are fearless in the daylight too, scurrying openly through the muck, over boots and gear, in search of scraps. Sometimes you see them dragging bits of discarded food or torn uniforms back to hidden nests. It's a grim reminder that life persists in this shattered place, but at what cost? One evening, while you're repairing a section of wire, a sudden movement catches your attention. A rat, fat and agile, darts through the grass near the trench's edge. It pauses, head twitching, nose quivering in the cold air, then bolts back towards the shelter of the mud. You wonder how many of these creatures share this wasteland with you, how many more unseen horrors lurk beneath the surface. The men joke bitterly that the rats are the real victors here, surviving the shells, the gas, the cold, and the endless fear. You can't help but agree silently. They move with a certainty you envy. their tiny eyes unblinking, their bodies adapted perfectly to this nightmare. That night, in the cramped darkness of your dugout, the rats' soft scratching sounds become a lullaby of sorts. You lie still, listening as their little feet patter over the wood above you, their faint squeaks echoing like a reminder that you are not alone. Sometimes, you imagine you can hear them whispering stories of the trench, of the men who once fought here, of the lives lost and forgotten. You try to focus on your breathing, slow and steady, to block out the tiny invasions on your skin and mind. You know sleep won't come easily, but the rats keep moving, indifferent to your suffering. In this war they are a constant, relentless, invasive, and impossible to escape. Even in moments of uneasy calm, the weight of fear presses down on you, heavier than your soaked greatcoat or the relentless mud. It's an invisible enemy, one that never leaves your side, one that whispers in your ear when the shells quiet and the world seems still. You feel it coil tightly in your stomach, a cold knot that never fully unravels. During a lull in the fighting, you stand watch once again, rifle steady but hands trembling ever so slightly. The trench stretches before you like a scar in the earth, a fragile barrier between life and the unknown beyond. Every shadow, every gust of wind makes you flinch. The slightest noise could be a warning, a sniper's shot, the soft steps of a patrol, the opening breath of a shell. You think about the men who have gone missing in the night, swallowed by the darkness or caught in wire that seems to reach out like fingers. Their absence hangs heavy in the air, a silent reminder that death can come at any moment, unseen and merciless. Sometimes you catch yourself imagining what it must be like for them, wandering lost in that desolate no-man's land, or lying wounded and helpless beneath the soil. The fear also lives in your dreams. They come unbidden, vivid and cruel. Explosions tearing through the night, comrades falling silently, the choking burn of gas. You wake gasping, heart pounding, the taste of mud and blood thick in your mouth. The dugout is cold and dark, the faint scratch of rats somewhere above you a harsh reminder of reality. In the trench, fear is not weakness. It's a companion, as constant and persistent as the mud or the cold. It sharpens your senses, keeps you alert, but it also gnaws at your spirit, making each day feel like an eternity. You remind yourself to breathe slowly, to focus on the rhythm of your body. You tell yourself that this moment will pass, that you will see another dawn, but deep inside you know the fear is not something you can outrun or defeat. It's woven into the very fabric of this place, a shadow that clings as tightly as the mud to your boots. And so you stand watch, listening to the silence, waiting for the next sound, the next signal that the nightmare has not ended. The waiting is the hardest part. After the noise and terror of battle, after the rush and chaos, you're left with the suffocating stillness of the trenches. Time stretches out in long, endless hours that bleed into one another. Days pass in a blur of mud and monotony, punctuated only by brief moments of sudden violence that remind you why you endure this hell. You find yourself counting the hours between shell bursts, the minutes between patrols. Every second is measured against a distant hope, relief, a message from home, a sign that this war will end. But those signs are rare. Mostly there is just the waiting. In the trenches, the waiting gnaws at your mind. It turns your thoughts inward, dredging up memories of life before the war, faces of loved ones, the smell of rain on dry earth, the warmth of a fire. You clutch these memories tightly, as if they could shield you from the bleak present. The men around you grow restless, some pacing in small circles, others sitting quietly, staring into the dark. Conversations are hushed, voices low, as if speaking too loudly might summon the enemy. You share cigarettes passed hand to hand, the faint glow of the matches briefly lighting tired faces etched with dirt and despair. Sometimes, orders come down the line. A warning of an impending assault, a command to prepare for patrols, or news that another unit has been withdrawn. Each message brings a ripple of nervous energy, a flicker of hope or dread, before settling back into the familiar weight of waiting. You walk along the trench, your boots squelching in the mud, the trench walls closing in around you like the pages of a book trapping a story you don't want to read. The cold presses against your skin, the wet seeps through every layer of clothing. Your breath forms small clouds in the air, and you wrap your coat tighter, wishing for warmth that never seems to come. The distant sound of artillery fire echoes across the battlefield, a grim reminder that the war continues beyond this fragile shelter. You wonder how many men lie motionless in the fields beyond the wire, their stories ending in silence, and still, you wait. Waiting for dawn, waiting for orders, waiting for something, anything, to break the endless cycle. The trench holds you, a prison and a refuge, and time slips away like water through your fingers. A faint scent drifts through the damp air, subtle yet unmistakable. It wraps around you quietly, a reminder of the harsh reality that surrounds the trenches. You have grown used to it in a way, though it still unsettles you, an ever-present sign of the fragile boundary between life and what lies beyond. As you move along the muddy path, your boot sinks slightly into the soft earth. You pause, noticing the outline of something beneath the surface, a fallen soldier, partially covered by the relentless mud, his uniform soaked and blending with the earth. The features have softened in the cold, the line between man and ground becoming indistinct. The trenches bear many such marks, reminders of those who have passed, sometimes hurriedly tended to, other times left as part of the landscape itself. The air carries a mixture of earth, weariness, and the lingering presence of the many who have been here before. Nearby, a rat scurries across the ground, pausing briefly before disappearing into the shadows. This harsh environment is a constant struggle, not just between men, but also against the elements that reclaim all in time. Back in the dugout, the scent is faint but persistent. You attempt to freshen yourself with what little water you have, the chill biting at your skin, yet the surroundings seem to hold on to every trace. You change your clothing as best you can, the fabric heavy and damp. At night, the quiet seems to deepen, the cool mist settling over the trenches, carrying with it the weight of countless untold stories. It lingers in your thoughts, weaving into your restless moments, a reminder of the toll this place has taken. You learn to carry it with you, a silent companion to the days and nights spent here. It is part of the trench's story, a solemn presence, patient and unyielding. And as you lie still, gazing upward at the rough wooden beams, you feel the weight of it all, the endurance, the loss, and the quiet strength it demands. The air itself becomes an enemy here, thick and heavy with invisible dangers. Days ago, the sky had turned an unnatural greenish yellow, a cruel signal that gas was coming. You had barely had time to put on your mask, a cumbersome, damp thing that pressed against your face, making every breath a labour. Now, even when the gas has lifted, the memory of its bitter, choking presence lingers. You walk carefully, mindful of the gas warning still echoing through the trench. The slightest gust can bring the poison back, seeping into every crevice and hollow. The soldiers around you cough harshly, their eyes red and glassy. Some are already showing signs of exposure, wheezing, exhaustion, their skin pale beneath the grime. The masks help, but only just. They make talking difficult, and the dampness inside them breeds discomfort and dread. Breathing feels unnatural, a constant reminder of how vulnerable you are in this place. The air tastes metallic, like rust and ash mixed with the damp earth. As you move toward the front line, you notice the devastated landscape. Trees stripped bare, leaves blackened and falling like ash, the ground scarred and lifeless. The gas doesn't just attack the soldiers, it poisons the earth, turning the fields into a wasteland where nothing grows. You pause, heart heavy, watching a small bird flit through the ruins, its wings beating desperately against the poisoned sky. Life struggles here, fighting against forces beyond comprehension. The threat of gas attacks is ever present, a silent terror lurking just beyond the horizon. The men prepare as best they can, but there is no true defence against this invisible enemy. Every breath taken in the trenches is a risk, a gamble with fate. The air feels thick with despair, but also with determination. You realise that in this harsh environment, survival is an act of quiet courage. To endure the poisoned air, the biting cold, and the endless mud is to resist not just the enemy, but the very elements of this forsaken place. And so, with your mask pressed tightly to your face, you press forward, step by slow step, through the haze and ruin, holding on to the fragile hope that another breath will come easier. The trench never truly sleeps. Even as the night deepens and the world seems to pause, your senses remain alert, tuned to every sound and movement. Darkness is no refuge here. It is a curtain that conceals danger as easily as safety. You know that any moment could bring the sharp crack of gunfire, the sudden whistle of a shell, or the muffled footsteps of an enemy patrol. You stand watch again, the cold biting through your damp clothes, the weight of your rifle familiar and steady in your hands. Your breath forms small clouds that disappear into the heavy night air. Around you, the trench stretches like a dark serpent, twisting and turning, a fragile line of defence carved into the earth. The silence is oppressive, broken only by distant echoes, perhaps a dog barking far off, or the low rumble of artillery. These sounds remind you that the war is always just beyond the horizon, waiting to surge back over the shattered land. Your eyes strain to pierce the gloom, scanning for any sign of movement. The mud around you seems to swallow the light, the shapes of sandbags and barbed wire merging into shadowy forms. You feel the weight of loneliness settle deep in your chest, a hollow ache beneath the constant tension. Suddenly a faint noise, a rustle, a whisper, makes your heart leap. Your grip tightens, fingers cold and trembling. You wait, breath held, muscles coiled like a spring. But the moment passes, perhaps only a rat, or the wind through the broken boards. You remind yourself that vigilance is both protection and torment. It keeps you alive but steals peace. The endless hours of watching and waiting carve away at your spirit, leaving raw edges and weary bones. Yet still you stand, eyes open, breath steady, ready for whatever comes next. In the trenches, survival depends as much on routine as on courage. Each day blends into the next with a relentless predictability, a cycle of small tasks and endless waiting that seems designed to wear you down. You wake before dawn, your body stiff and aching from the cold, the weight of your gear already pressing on your shoulders. Morning brings the same chores, repairing wire, digging drainage ditches, checking ammunition and rifles. The men move like ghosts through the mud, faces drawn and eyes hollow. Conversation is sparse, muffled by the thick air and the ever-present grime. Each gesture, each word is heavy with unspoken fears. Meals are meagre and cold, the rations a bleak reminder of normal life's comforts slipping further away. You chew silently, swallowing bites of hard biscuits and canned meat, the taste bland and lifeless. There is no appetite here, only the need to keep going. Orders arrive in small bundles. A warning of an incoming bombardment, a call for a patrol, or instructions to prepare for the next assault. You listen carefully, the words sharp against the dull drone of the day. Each command carries the weight of uncertainty, the possibility that this will be your last mission. Amidst the routine, the moments of quiet feel surreal, almost cruel. You watch the sky, if it can be called that, grey and heavy, the clouds pressing down like a ceiling. The landscape beyond the trenches is scarred and broken, a desolate expanse of churned earth and shattered trees. You think of home, of sunlight on green fields, and wonder if you will ever see such peace again. The routine numbs you, blurring the line between hope and despair, keeping you moving forward when everything inside begs you to stop. But this is how you survive. One day, one task, one breath at a time. In the trenches, the bonds between men become one of the few lights in an otherwise grim world. You find yourself sharing not just the mud and cold, but the unspoken fears and fleeting moments of hope with those around you. The comrades beside you are not just fellow soldiers, they become your lifeline, a fragile thread holding you to sanity amid the chaos. You watch them carefully, their faces etched with exhaustion, eyes haunted by things unspoken. Sometimes a shared joke, quiet and dry, cuts through the tension like a fleeting spark. Other times, the silence between you is heavy and thick, each man lost in his own thoughts, struggling to make sense of this endless nightmare. You notice the subtle ways you support each other, passing a cigarette, offering a piece of hardtack, or simply a steadying hand on a trembling shoulder. In these small acts, there is a quiet courage that no weapon can match. But camaraderie is complicated here. Fear breeds tension, and not every bond withstands the pressure. Sometimes arguments flare, harsh words spoken in moments of weakness. You see men break, the strain too much to bear. Others harden, walls rising to guard against the pain. Yet despite it all, the comradeship persists. It is the fragile thread that ties you to the world beyond the trench, a world that seems distant and unreal. Without it, the darkness would swallow you whole. You realise that in this place of mud and fear, the quiet solidarity of the men beside you is a small beacon of humanity. It is imperfect, fragile, but vital, and so you cling to it. In the quiet moments between bombardments, your thoughts drift to the letters you've written, or hope to write, back home. Each note carries more weight than you might expect, a fragile connection to a world that feels increasingly distant. You clutch the worn pencil and scraps of paper, imagining the faces of loved ones reading your words, the faint smile a letter might bring. Writing is both solace and torment. As you try to put your thoughts into words, the memories flood in, the laughter of family, the warmth of a fire, the smell of fresh bread. These images contrast sharply with the mud and blood around you, a bittersweet reminder of what once was and what may never be again. Sometimes letters never leave the trenches. Lost in the chaos, destroyed in a sudden attack, or swallowed by the mud, they vanish without a trace. You imagine them drifting like ghosts, unread and forgotten. At times, you receive replies, brief, hurried words from those who wait anxiously on the other side of the war. Their letters speak of hope and worry, of life continuing despite the distance. You read them under the dim light of a candle. The words are balm to your weary soul. But more often, there is silence. No news, no comfort. The waiting stretches on, and the uncertainty gnaws at you. You fold another letter carefully, tucking it away with the few precious possessions you carry. It is a small act of defiance against the chaos, a way to hold on to hope in a place designed to crush it. And in the stillness, you wonder if these words, these fragile letters, will ever reach their destination, or if they too will be lost to the endless mud and rain. The distant rumble begins, low and ominous, a sound that has become all too familiar. You feel it before you hear it, the earth trembling beneath your feet, the hairs on your neck standing on end. The moment stretches, a suspended breath in the heavy air, before the first shell tears through the sky with a sharp whistling scream. Explosions follow in a relentless rhythm, each one shaking the ground and rattling the trench walls. The noise is deafening, a thunderous roar that drowns out every other sound, the shouted orders, the cries of men, even your own heartbeat. The air fills with dust and the acrid smell of cordite, stinging your eyes and throat. You crouch low, pressing yourself against the muddy wall, trying to make yourself as small as possible. Around you, the trench shudders, bits of earth raining down, and the wooden supports creak under the strain. You feel the shock waves pass through your body, a physical assault that leaves your muscles trembling. Each explosion sends up clouds of dirt and debris, turning the landscape beyond the wire into a chaotic storm of mud and smoke. The distant cries and commands are muffled, as if heard through water, making you feel isolated in a world gone mad. In these moments, time seems to slow. You focus on your breathing, counting the seconds between blasts, grounding yourself in the chaos. The fear is sharp but strangely distant, replaced by a strange clarity, a survival instinct honed by months of this relentless barrage. When the shelling finally subsides, the silence that follows is thick and heavy, almost more terrifying than the noise. You look around at the shattered trench, the broken men, the scarred earth. The world feels changed, as if something fundamental has been torn away, and still, the war goes on. The relentless strain of trench warfare wears down not only the body but the mind. Exhaustion seeps into every fibre of your being, a heavy fog that clouds your thoughts and dulls your senses. Days and nights blend into one another, punctuated by broken sleep and the constant demands of survival. You find it harder to focus, your movements slower, your reactions delayed. The weight of your gear feels unbearable at times, yet you dare not rest too deeply, knowing that danger lurks in every moment. Even in brief pauses, your body aches with the memories of strain, muscles cramping, joints stiffening, skin chafed by wet fabric. Sleep is fitful and shallow, interrupted by nightmares or the distant crackle of gunfire. You wake with a start, heart racing, disoriented in the dark only to remember where you are. The trench, cold and unforgiving. The exhaustion twists your emotions too. Moments of anger flare unexpectedly. Grief wells up without warning. Yet there are also times when you feel numb, detached from the world, drifting in a haze where pain and fear are muted. Around you, the men suffer the same fate. Faces once bright with determination grow gaunt and hollow. Eyes reflect a weariness that words cannot capture. Some talk of home in whispers, others fall silent, lost in their own battles. Despite it all, you keep going, pushed by a stubborn will to survive, by the bonds of comradeship, and by the faint hope that this nightmare will end. But the toll of exhaustion is relentless, a shadow that follows you, growing heavier with each passing day. The rats are everywhere. They are a constant, unwelcome presence in the trenches, large and bold, their beady eyes gleaming in the dim light. They scurry over the muddy walls and through the piles of discarded equipment, unafraid of the men who share their squalid domain. In the darkness, their squeaks and scurries create a haunting symphony that echoes through the night. You watch one rat, fat and greasy, dart across the trench floor, weaving through legs and equipment with uncanny confidence. It pauses briefly, sniffing the air before disappearing into a small crevice. These creatures thrive in the chaos, feeding on scraps and worse, sometimes even on the remains left behind. The rats carry disease, adding another invisible enemy to the list. They gnaw at boots, uniforms, and occasionally at sleeping soldiers. Their presence is a reminder of the filth and decay that surround you, a symbol of the war's merciless toll on both man and nature. Efforts to keep them at bay are futile. Trench raids and cleaning parties can only do so much. The rats multiply faster than they can be driven away, their survival instinct as strong as your own. Sometimes, in the long, weary hours, you catch yourself envying them, creatures that live without hope or fear, driven by instinct alone. But then a rat slips too close, and the cold reality of your situation pulls you back. They are a constant reminder that in this place, even the smallest life is a struggle, and you, like the rats, are caught in a desperate fight to survive. In the trenches, not all injuries are visible. The physical wounds, the cuts, shrapnel and bruises, are only part of the story. There are wounds that live deeper, hidden beneath the surface, invisible to those around you but no less real or painful. You feel them in the quiet moments, when the noise of the guns fades and your mind wanders to things you try to forget. Memories of close calls, of friends lost, and the constant fear that your own time could come at any moment. These shadows follow you, unrelenting and heavy. Sleep offers little respite. Nightmares visit uninvited, scenes of battle replaying with cruel vividness. Sometimes you wake soaked in sweat, heart pounding, unable to shake the images. The weight on your chest makes breathing difficult, and you find yourself staring blankly at the rough wooden planks above, wondering if peace will ever return. Talking about these feelings is rare. The unwritten rule is to be strong, to carry on without complaint. But silence does not heal. It buries pain deeper, where it festers and grows. You see it in the eyes of the men around you, glazed looks, sudden outbursts, moments of despair. Some retreat into themselves, others lash out. The invisible wounds affect not just the individual but the entire group, creating cracks in the fragile fabric of comradeship. In this harsh world, resilience is tested every day. You learn that survival depends not only on physical strength, but on the ability to bear these unseen burdens, to find small moments of light amid overwhelming darkness. And though the wounds are hidden, their mark is undeniable. Waiting in the trenches is an experience unlike any other. Hours stretch into days with agonizing slowness, the passage of time measured only by the changing light and the rhythm of distant artillery. You find yourself caught in a suspended state, alert but motionless, tense yet exhausted. The waiting is both a torment and a test of endurance. You pace the narrow walls, your boots sinking into the ever-present mud, eyes scanning the horizon for any sign of movement. The silence between bombardments feels thick and heavy, as if the entire world is holding its breath. You watch the sky change colours, from pale dawn to grey afternoon, then to the muted blues and blacks of night. Each sunset is tinged with melancholy, a reminder that another day has passed in this unforgiving place. In the stillness, your mind drifts. You think of what might come next, an attack, a raid, a simple shift change, and yet nothing changes. The monotony presses down on you, the weight as oppressive as the mud beneath your feet. Conversations are hushed and scarce, voices lowered out of habit or fear. Men retreat into themselves, conserving energy and emotion, knowing that whatever happens, they must be ready. The waiting wears on you. It erodes your patience and frays your nerves, but it also sharpens your instincts, teaches you to listen to the smallest sounds, to read the faintest signs in the wind or the earth. In this endless limbo, time loses meaning. Days and nights blur together, leaving only the persistent presence of waiting for orders, waiting for relief, waiting for the unknown. And you learn that sometimes survival means nothing more than enduring the long, slow moments in between. In the trenches, the simple act of eating becomes a daily struggle, as much a battle as any fought with rifles or artillery. Your stomach, hollow and aching, reminds you constantly of the scarce and often unappetizing food that sustains you. Meagre rations designed more to maintain survival than to satisfy hunger or provide comfort. The smell of damp bread, canned meat, and bitter tea mingles with the ever-present sense of mud and sweat, creating an atmosphere that feels oppressive and unending. You unwrap a hard biscuit, its texture like stale wood, dry and crumbly. Each bite requires careful chewing to avoid breaking your teeth, and the taste is a bitter reminder of the life you once knew. The canned meat is often salty and greasy, sometimes spoiled by the journey, but it is all you have. The tea, served lukewarm, offers a brief moment of warmth, yet it can't mask the gnawing emptiness in your belly. Food isn't just nourishment here. It's a rare moment of routine and normalcy, a small anchor in the chaos. Yet the quantity is insufficient, and hunger is a constant companion. Your body feels the strain, muscles weaken, energy fades, and even simple tasks grow harder with each passing day. You notice how the men around you grow thinner, their faces sharper, their eyes duller. Scavenging becomes a quiet, desperate act. Some risk forbidden ventures into no man's land, searching for discarded supplies or anything edible left behind. Others hoard scraps or barter among themselves, sharing what little they have to stave off the worst of the hunger. You remember stories told in whispers about those who, driven by starvation, succumbed to acts they never imagined, taking more than their share, or worse. The hunger here isn't just physical, it gnaws at your spirit, sapping morale and breeding tension. Despite the scarcity, there are rare moments of grace. A shared can of jam, a smuggled piece of chocolate, or a fresh vegetable sent in a care package brings a flicker of joy and reminds you that life beyond this hell still exists. These moments are treasured, talked about in quiet conversations and cherished long after the taste has faded. But mostly, the rations are a reminder of the harshness of your existence. They underline the stark difference between this muddy, broken world and the life you left behind. Hunger is a silent enemy, relentless and unforgiving, one that attacks from within when the shells do not. And so, each meal is both a relief and a challenge, a daily confrontation with the brutal realities of trench life. The trenches carry a presence that never quite fades, a heavy, lingering weight that touches everything around you. It is the sense of loss and hardship, woven into the very air you breathe. The earth, churned and torn, holds memories of battles past, and the quiet spaces between explosions feel filled with a silent reminder of what has been endured. You notice the subtle changes in the atmosphere, the heaviness in the air, a faint earthy scent mixed with the sharp tang of smoke and damp wood. It clings to your clothes and skin, a constant companion that cannot be shaken. Around you, the landscape is scarred and broken, shaped by the relentless conflict that has unfolded here. In the trenches, you become acutely aware of the fragility of life. The past moments of violence echo quietly in the stillness, as if the land itself remembers. This awareness shapes your every step and breath, a solemn reminder of the reality beyond the mud and barbed wire. Despite the weight of this presence, life continues in small, determined ways. The men share quiet words, tend to their gear, and hold on to fleeting moments of hope. The trench is both prison and refuge, a place where resilience grows alongside sorrow. You carry this feeling with you as you move through the winding paths and wooden supports, knowing that each day is a gift, and each breath an act of quiet defiance against the hardship surrounding you. The mud in the trenches is more than just dirt. It is a living, suffocating presence that clings to you relentlessly. It seeps into every crevice, coating your boots, weighing down your uniform, and pulling at your movements as if trying to hold you in place. The rain, frequent and unforgiving, turns the earth into a quagmire, a sticky, heavy sludge that makes even the simplest task a laborious ordeal. You step cautiously, each foot sinking into the mire, your boots squelching with every movement. The trenches themselves seem to stretch endlessly, their walls slick and unstable, threatening to collapse with every heavy step or sudden storm. Drainage is nearly impossible. The water collects in puddles and pools, turning the trench floor into a vast, uneven swamp. Mud becomes the enemy that wears you down slowly but persistently. It chills you to the bone, soaking through layers of clothing and seeping into your skin. It carries with it the remnants of everything: waste, discarded equipment, and sometimes something darker, making the trench a place of constant discomfort and contamination. You try to keep your gear dry, but the mud has its way, invading your packs and pockets. The weight of the soaked fabric pulls at your limbs, adding to the exhaustion that the endless waiting and vigilance already demand. Even rest is difficult. Sleeping in the trench means lying on wooden planks or cramped dugouts, both offering little relief from the cold, damp embrace of the earth. The mud is inescapable, a constant reminder of the harsh environment you inhabit. In this world of wet and muck, every movement requires effort, every breath is heavier, and every day becomes a test of endurance against a landscape that seems determined to swallow you whole. The rain falls ceaselessly, a cold, steady drizzle that seems to wash the sky but never the trenches. It seeps through every layer of your clothing, soaking into your skin and chilling you to the bone. You feel the weight of it on your shoulders as if the sky itself is pressing down, relentless and unforgiving. The droplets blur the world around you, turning the landscape into a shifting palette of greys and browns. Visibility drops, and the familiar landmarks become ghostly shapes in the mist. The sound of water hitting mud and wood is constant, a soft, persistent tapping that fills the silence between distant artillery and muffled voices. You pull your coat tighter, trying to guard against the damp that seeps deep into your muscles. Every step squelches in the growing pools of water. The trench becomes a ribbon of sludge, twisting and turning like a slow-moving river. The rain amplifies the mud's grip, turning it into a thick paste that clings to boots and clothes, weighing you down. The rain brings more than discomfort. It worsens the conditions, making trenches collapse, flooding dugouts, and creating perfect breeding grounds for disease. The cold dampness seeps into your bones, and the ever-present chill is a constant reminder of your vulnerability. At times, the rain seems endless, a slow, unyielding battle against your spirit. But you learn to endure, to adapt, to find small comforts: a shared cigarette under a ragged shelter, a whispered conversation, a moment of quiet amidst the storm. And as the rain falls, you understand that it is not just water, it is part of the war itself, a ceaseless, wearisome force that tests your strength every day. Amidst the endless mud and dampness, the ritual of cleanliness takes on a significance far greater than you would have imagined. In the trenches, washing is not merely about hygiene. It becomes an act of preserving some fragment of dignity and sanity in a world that seems to erode both with every passing day. You find a moment to fetch water from a makeshift well or a nearby stream, the cold liquid running over your hands, face and neck. The chill bites sharply, but it also brings a fleeting clarity, a reminder that beneath the grime and exhaustion, you are still human. Soap is a rare treasure, carefully rationed and used sparingly, often shared among comrades in a silent pact. You scrub at your skin, trying to remove layers of dirt, sweat, and the lingering smells that cling stubbornly. The grime seems endless, but even a small moment of cleanliness offers a sense of renewal. Shaving is another small but important task. Using a dull razor, you carefully work away the unkempt stubble, each stroke a slow reclaiming of identity amidst the chaos. The mirror is often a cracked shard or a polished tin, but it reflects the determination to hold on to self-respect. Clothing is scrubbed and aired when possible, hung over rails or draped on makeshift lines. Even this simple task becomes a battle against the damp and mud, but the effort is worth it for the brief feeling of freshness. These moments are often shared quietly. A few soldiers huddle together in a rare lull, trading stories or jokes while they attend to their bodies. The ritual provides a fragile thread of normalcy, a break from the unyielding hardships. Though the trenches press in on all sides, these small acts of care remind you that beneath the uniform, beneath the mud and fear, you're still a person, holding on to the hope that someday this will all end. Among the worn belongings pressed tightly against your chest, a small bundle of letters offers a fragile lifeline to a world beyond the trenches. Each envelope, its edges softened by time and handling, carries the voices of those you love, the distant warmth of family, the quiet strength of friends, and the faint hope of a future far removed from this muddy battlefield. You hold a letter, the paper thin and creased, and carefully break the seal. The handwriting is familiar, sometimes shaky, sometimes steady, but always filled with words that stir something deep inside, a mix of longing, reassurance, and unspoken fears. The letters are a sanctuary in the chaos. You read them slowly, savouring each sentence as if it were a rare delicacy. They remind you of laughter, of sunlight filtering through leaves, of simple pleasures you once took for granted. In those moments, the trench seems a little less cold, a little less endless. But the letters also carry the weight of absence. With every line you feel the distance growing, the slow unravelling of lives lived apart. Some letters speak of hardships at home, of worries and waiting. Others offer quiet encouragement, urging you to hold on, to survive. The ritual of reading and rereading these words becomes a daily solace. You tuck the letters close, protecting them from the mud and rain, knowing they are more than just paper. They are a connection, a tether to the life you fight to return to. Yet, with each letter received, there is also the silent fear that the next might bring news you do not want to hear. Still, you carry them with you, a fragile hope amid the relentless hardship of war. Fear is an unrelenting companion in the trenches, a fog that seeps into your thoughts and wraps itself tightly around your heart. It is neither constant nor predictable. Sometimes it roars like the thunder of artillery, other times it creeps silently, a cold shadow lurking just beyond your vision. It colours every moment, casting long, uncertain shadows over even the smallest decisions. You awake in the dark, senses heightened, heart pounding with the echo of distant gunfire or the sudden whistle of a shell overhead. Every noise, the creak of a wooden plank, the rustle of a rat, the murmur of voices, can trigger the adrenaline surge that tightens your chest and sharpens your reflexes. Even in moments of relative quiet, the fear simmers beneath the surface, a restless energy that refuses to be ignored. The anticipation is perhaps the hardest part. You never know when the next attack will come, when a sudden barrage will erupt or orders will send you over the top into no man's land. Each second stretches with the weight of what might be, and the mind races with countless scenarios, some hopeful, many terrifying. Fear alters your perception. Time dilates and contracts, minutes dragging endlessly or snapping by in an instant. The world narrows to immediate survival, breathing, moving, listening. You become acutely aware of your own vulnerability and the fragility of life. Among the men, fear is a silent thread connecting everyone, binding you together in a fragile unity. It is seldom spoken aloud, masked by jokes or stoic faces, but its presence is undeniable. Sometimes it erupts in bursts, nervous laughter, terse arguments, or sudden tears. Other times, it settles into a quiet resignation, a heavy weariness that dulls the spirit. Yet fear also sharpens your senses and deepens your bonds with comrades. It pushes you to remain vigilant, to support each other in small ways, to find strength in shared experience. In those moments, you glimpse a kind of courage, not the absence of fear, but the choice to face it despite everything. As the fog of fear settles over the trenches, you learn to live with its weight. It becomes part of the rhythm of your days, a constant reminder of the precariousness of existence in this harsh and unforgiving place. The cold in the trenches is a presence as tangible as the mud or the gunfire, a relentless force that gnaws at your body and spirit alike. It creeps into your bones, seeping through layers of uniform and clothing, turning muscles stiff and fingers numb. No fire or movement seems to offer lasting relief. The chill is persistent, unforgiving. You awake in the early hours, the world around you shrouded in a biting frost. Your breath rises in visible puffs, dissolving into the heavy silence. The wooden planks beneath you are hard and cold, and the cramped dugout offers little shelter from the penetrating air. Your body shivers uncontrollably, a reaction both instinctive and helpless. You pull your coat tighter, wrap your scarf closer, but the cold finds every gap, every exposed patch. Feet soaked from mud and rain are especially vulnerable, turning stiff and pale, aching with the cold's slow bite. Numbness dulls your senses, making simple tasks difficult. Hands fail to grip tools or weapons firmly, and every movement requires extra effort. Sleep becomes elusive. The cold breaks your rest, forcing you to wake again and again. Illness follows closely behind the cold, frostbite, pneumonia, and other ailments that spread silently, weakening the body and spirit. You see comrades succumb, faces pale and drawn, bodies shaking beyond control. Medical supplies are limited, and the constant dampness only worsens conditions. Yet the cold brings with it moments of quiet beauty. Frost crystals sparkle on the mud, sunlight glints off icy surfaces, and the sharp, clean air offers a brief clarity amid the chaos. These fleeting glimpses remind you of the world beyond the trenches, a place that still holds warmth and life. But for now, the cold remains an unyielding adversary, an invisible enemy that tests your endurance as much as any bullet or shell. Even in the darkest hours of trench warfare, amidst the mud, cold, and relentless danger, there are moments when hope flickers softly, like a candle struggling against the wind. These moments are fragile, easily extinguished by the harsh realities around you, yet they are vital, a quiet resistance against despair. You find yourself clutching to these brief respites, a letter from home, the laughter of a fellow soldier, the unexpected gift of a shared cigarette. These small acts of kindness, these threads of connection, weave together a fragile fabric of resilience. Sometimes it is the sight of a single star breaking through the thick blanket of night, or the gentle touch of a hand on your shoulder, reminding you that you're not alone. You catch yourself dreaming of a life beyond the trenches, fields bathed in sunlight, the warm embrace of family, the simple pleasure of a clear sky. In these moments, the war feels distant, the noise and fear momentarily silenced. The mind drifts to memories of home, to hopes for peace, to promises whispered in quiet moments. But the flicker of hope is also a burden. It sharpens the contrast between what is and what might be, making the trenches feel even colder, the days longer. It is a bittersweet companion, both comforting and cruel. Yet, it is this fragile hope that carries you forward day by day. It is the quiet determination to survive, to endure, to someday return to a world where this darkness is only a memory. And so, amidst the mud and fear, the hope persists, a small, steadfast light in the vast, unyielding night. Time stretches endlessly in the trenches, each day blending into the next with an oppressive sameness that weighs heavily on your mind. The waiting is perhaps the most exhausting battle, waiting for orders, waiting for the next bombardment, waiting for a chance to move, to fight, or to escape. The uncertainty gnaws at you, a slow erosion of patience and spirit. You count the hours between patrols and shelling, marking time by the shifting light or the changing sounds of the battlefield. Sometimes minutes feel like hours, other times days slip by in a blur of mud and monotony. The routine offers little comfort. Daily chores, cleaning weapons, repairing trenches, but even these small tasks feel hollow against the backdrop of the unknown. In this limbo, your thoughts wander. You replay memories, imagine futures, or simply stare into the mud, searching for distraction. Conversations are quiet, punctuated by long silences that hang heavy in the cold air. The men around you seem both distant and intimately bound by the shared suspension in time. The waiting breeds restlessness and weariness. It tests your ability to focus, to stay alert, and to hold on to hope. Some find solace in small rituals or prayer. Others turn inward, grappling silently with fear and doubt. Yet, despite the endless waiting, there is a strange resilience. Each moment survived is a victory, each breath a defiance. The passage of time becomes both enemy and ally, promising change while demanding endurance. And so, you endure the slow, unyielding passage of time in the trenches, caught between the past and an uncertain future, trapped in a waiting that seems without end. After what feels like an eternity under the relentless assault of war, a strange stillness settles over the trenches. The cacophony of gunfire fades into a distant murmur, and the earth, scarred and battered, seems to pause in a moment of uneasy calm. You stand in the trench, shoulders aching from the weight of gear and fatigue, heart pounding from recent adrenaline, yet now gripped by a quiet that feels almost unnatural. The air is thick with the scent of damp earth and spent gunpowder, mingled with a faint whisper of smoke that drifts lazily across the shattered landscape. Around you, the trenches stretch out like deep scars, filled with the detritus of battle, broken rifles, discarded helmets, splintered wood, and the mud that never quite seems to dry. The sky above is a muted grey, heavy with clouds, as if reflecting the sombre mood of the men below. You notice the silence is broken only by the occasional murmur of voices, soft, cautious, as if afraid to disturb the fragile peace. Men move slowly, some sitting with their heads bowed, others tending to wounds or checking weapons with mechanical precision. There is an unspoken understanding that this moment is both a respite and a reminder, a brief pause before the next storm, or perhaps a farewell to what has been endured. As you look around, the faces of your comrades reveal a complex tapestry of emotions: exhaustion, relief, grief, and a quiet hope that this day will mark a turning point. You think of the friends who will never see the dawn, their absence a heavy weight in the pit of your stomach. The camaraderie forged in hardship feels both precious and painfully fragile. In this stillness, your thoughts drift to the world beyond the trenches, the fields and forests untouched by war, the laughter of children, the warmth of a fire on a cold night. You yearn for these simple pleasures, for a life unmarked by fear and mud. The memory of home becomes a beacon, guiding you through the lingering darkness. Yet, even as the quiet offers a momentary balm, it carries with it an undeniable truth. The war is far from over. The trenches will fill again, the guns will roar, and the earth will tremble beneath the march of soldiers. But for now, in this fleeting pause, you hold on to the fragile thread of peace, drawing strength from it to face whatever comes next. And so, standing in the hollowed earth, surrounded by the scars of battle and the silent echoes of those who fought beside you, you realize that survival is more than a physical act. It is a quiet resilience of the spirit, a testament to the enduring human will amidst the darkest of times. Thank you for journeying through this story, stepping into the mud, the fear, and the quiet moments of World War I's trenches. Though the hardships were immense, so too was the resilience of those who lived through it. As you settle now, may the echoes of the past remind you how precious peace and rest truly are. Let your breathing slow, your muscles relax, and your mind drift gently away from the harshness of history into a calm, restful sleep. Sleep well, and may your dreams be peaceful and kind.